So I tried Clockwork time tracking for 2 weeks, and here's what I learned. I am not great at delegating yet. My business coach would have me say yet. I'm not great at delegating yet. I found out I'm pretty crap at it. And the reason I know this is because people have been working for me, and no one is younger with my company than a year. So they've at least been with my company for a year. And when I did time tracking from Mike Michalowicz's Clockwork Revised and Expanded book, he has you put your tasks or what you're doing into 4 separate categories. You're either designing, like some people would call it working on your business rather than working in your business, or you're doing, so actually delivering a product or service. And then he's got 2 other D's, which are directing and delegating. And they're similar but different. Delegating is obviously the better choice, where you're delegating outcomes, whereas directing, you're telling someone how to do exactly what they're doing. So in my time tracking journey, I realized that I was spending a lot of my time. I don't want to say most. I was still spending most of my time on doing and designing, but a lot of time was spent directing, like literally saying, do this, or making decisions on behalf of people that work for me. And I don't care how long your onboarding system is. If it's a year and you're still telling people exactly how to do things, I think you have a delegation problem. I'm looking at you, Tina, versus, and maybe an onboarding problem, but probably a delegation problem. So that is the TLDR of this, is that you should absolutely track your time. I think you'll learn a lot about yourself and a lot about your business. I think it helps tell you things that are going on in your business. I learned a lot more than just maybe I'm not that great at delegating. And I did learn some tips about delegating, things that I was clearly not doing well. For one, I was allowing people to do part of the work and then giving them feedback as soon as they sent the thing to me before it got to a client or something like that, versus in Clockwork Revised and Expanded, Mike suggests that you let them do the entire project until it's over, and then you give feedback. Otherwise, people are constantly coming back to you and saying, well, what do you think about this? Or how should I do this? And he's right. I mean, I think he's right. I haven't tried it 100% yet, but I have caught myself doing the thing the way he says don't do it. And so I'm hoping that this will help me overcome my delegation issue. So that was a huge part of it. I was finding out how I was spending a ton of time directing, answering questions, making decisions, deciding for people rather than allowing them to decide. And I was interrupting the flow of work. So super bottleneck right here. I was interrupting the flow of work and giving feedback before the delegated task was across the finish line, when I should have been giving feedback after the delegated task was across the finish line. So that's one thing I learned. The other thing is that I had assigned out some design tasks for the business. They weren't huge, but I spend a lot of my time designing because I'm visionary. It's what I like to do best. I'm always thinking of what's next and working on building this business versus, the thing that we deliver is building other people's businesses. And so according to Clockwork Revised and Expanded, the company as a mix, if you're a solopreneur or marketing contractor who you're the only employee and you don't use resources to help you deliver, then it's you. But the company as a mix should be spending 80% of their time doing that is delivering the work on behalf of the clients. And because I was spending time designing, and because I had outsourced some chunks of design work for the company, for my business, then we were lopsided in design mode versus in execution on behalf of the client. And I did feel that I have felt that in our revenue, that has gotten a little lopsided. And I do think like the first signal about that was in my profit first allocation weeks, but this is helping me diagnose like what that actually looks like, looking at the amount of time that I'm spending on different pieces of it and the amount of time that my team is dedicating to design versus doing work. And so I'm going to work on flipping that around. I think it will help my revenue piece. And so I appreciate Clockwork for that. I think it's a good check and balance, the time tracking piece, to make sure that, you know, you're doing the right things, that the time that you're spending is being put in the right buckets so that you will have revenue and also that you will spend some time designing. So I know there are companies out there who don't spend enough time designing or working on their business. Some of my friends do that, and they're looking for ways to, hey, I've got to go and correct and start working on my business, because then that turns into sales and revenue and all that jazz. The actual delivery of the project is where they spend a ton of their time. So they might have to redo their 4D mix and put more time in designing. But for me and my team at the moment, we're a little bit lopsided on the design. We're design heavy, and we've got to rectify that ship to be more doing heavy. So that's one of the things I'm going to be doing, and one of the things I learned, and it was a good check to do that just by doing the time tracking and looking through the projects and how I had assigned them and how I would classify them. Now, a question I'm gonna ask, because all of this has led to the fact that I think I need a little bit of help in making sure that I'm actually classifying things correctly and getting some of these other pieces off my plate that I don't want to be doing anymore, and that I'm operating in my queen bee role. If you've read Clockwork, you know what I mean. But in the thing that I do best at, and in the promise that we're delivering for our client. And so I'm going to do the boot camp. I think they're opening registration for that on September 1st. I'm going to do the Clockwork Bootcamp because I want some questions answered. As an example, what is this? Like what I'm doing right now, this short is not short, first of all, but also it's, I think it's design work, because it's not delivering a service or product, but it is hopefully delivering value to people I serve. So that's a tricky one. Is this designing or doing work? I think it's designing. But maybe I'm categorizing it wrong. And because I'm not sure, I'm going to join that boot camp. So maybe you should show up and join me in the boot camp, and we can talk about where we're getting it all wrong and how we can get it right. Because as entrepreneurs, and the delegating thing I'm sure will come up, because as entrepreneurs, like, we want to delegate. I want to delegate. I just don't know how to release the responsibility well enough and trust people, because it is a trust thing. And I do trust the people that work for me. Like, they would not be working for me if I didn't trust them, but I'm gonna have to trust more to allow that and let it go, and retrain them that I'm not going to keep stepping on their toes. So I think if there's a problem in my team stepping up to the plate, it's because I have to retrain them that I am not going to walk on their toes or give them critical feedback in the middle of what they're doing. I'm going to let them do what they do best. and that is serving our people to help make them profitable without having to work so hard. And hopefully I will not be the bottleneck anymore. So Clockwork time tracking. I did it for 2 weeks. This is what I learned, among other things, but these were the highlights of what I learned. And so I'll give you an update on how it changes the business as I restructure the tasks that we're doing and hopefully delegate a little bit better, because I'm going to get better at it. All right, bye.